Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. So today we're going to be looking at the polling data from Wednesday, October 17th, and we're seeing a lot of information from these races. Right now you can see a lot of blue on your screen, but we have to go through a number of these individual races and what they mean for the 2018 midterm elections. So as of today, Thursday, October 18th, we are 19 days away from the 2018 midterm elections. So when I'm going through these polls, they are a day old, so I guess when these were taken, they were 20 days away from the midterm elections. It's very hard to believe that the elections I've been covering since early 2017 are finally leading up into this general election. So after this, it's going to be 2020 House, 2020 governorships, 2020 Senate elections, and of course the 2020 presidential election. So we're going to see a lot of interesting information after these election seasons, this election season specifically. But right now, we're just going to go through the data that we're seeing now. So again, we're seeing a lot more polling than we did with other type of, I guess, weeks before. Obviously, the races weren't as contested as they were a month ago, mainly because, again, October surprises, a number of last-minute opportunities for the Republicans and Democratic candidates to go out and campaign in certain areas that they didn't really touch before. A lot of people withdrawing from certain candidates for certain reasons, candidates that led before, like Andrew Gillum, and then all of a sudden campaigned with Hillary Clinton and then went down. And it may not just be that. Again, it could be a number of other factors, but again, we're seeing some type of shift in terms of voting basis for a number of party voters, and typically the Democratic Party is the party that loses voters nearing an election season like in 2016 or 2014, 2010, 2012. If you look at all the polls that began in Republican wave years, such as 2010 and 2014, Democrats both led by 7% in the beginning for months. I mean, they led for months, whereas Republicans have never led in the 2018 generic congressional vote polls, not even once. Whereas in terms of the, I guess, overall vote nationwide, the Democrats led by 7% in 2014. The GOP held on to Congress and took back the House, then went on to 16 and won the presidency. But if you go back to 2010, 63-seat pickup for the Republicans in the House of Representatives, and they picked up a number of seats in the Senate. However, when we're looking at the polling data early on, Democrats led by double digits leading into the election season, and then last minute, all of a sudden, it shifted in the favor of the GOP, and I mean in a span of around a month. It went from being contested down 1-1 between the Democrats and the GOP when it was before, double digits for the Democrats, and then all of a sudden skyrocketed up in favor of the GOP to +9 on election day. So very interesting numbers. They definitely do have something to say, but they're not always too accurate early on, which is why the data we're getting now is very important. So the first poll that strikes right out at Republicans is the Florida Senate race. This is the only area where they have a possibility of a pickup in the Senate on this, I guess, list of polling data, because right now we're looking at Indiana and New Jersey, two contested races, but the Republicans aren't doing too well based on these numbers we're seeing now. But in the Florida Senate race, Rick Scott now leading by 2%. Now, the reason why that is quote-unquote monumental is because it puts it in a tie. Okay, there was a point in time where Nelson took back his lead. This is an area right after the overall primaries. And yes, Bill Nelson was leading before. Then Rick Scott took a lead, and everyone expected him to win there. Then all of a sudden, Nelson went up, and then here you are with a 1.7% lead, drop down to a tie. Because of this new poll that shows Scott leading by +2%, it doesn't help the Democrats' case that they can hold on to this race, because now it is no longer in favor of Bill Nelson when it really should be. As an incumbent leading into their re-election campaign, they really should be leading at this point, because it all comes down to these last-minute voters with, let's see, 4, I guess, undecided voters here, or some of them may be voting for other candidates. Right now, it's going to be very hard for Nelson to gain back a couple of these voters, especially with this being a Republican state from 2016. But nothing is really impossible looking at the data. But one thing is consistent from Florida, and a lot of these voters have already made up their minds. So these aren't some 41-39 polling numbers. These are 49-47. In the Indiana Senate race, we have Mike Braun, Joe Donnelly, and I'm not exactly sure Brenton's first name. But right now, if we're looking at the overall polling data, we have Donnelly plus 3.0. If we look at the two-way, it's Donnelly plus 4. So right now, we're just looking at the numbers there. And overall, right now, Donnelly is actually leading, which is pretty surprising to me. It's a poll taken by Gravis. Over in the New Jersey Senate race, though, Bob Hugin versus Bob Menendez. Menendez leads by 7%. There was a point in time where Menendez could have lost this race, but at this point, I think that the Democrats are going to come out in droves and actually re-elect Bob Menendez, even though by a narrower margin than before. I just don't think the time is now for a GOP pickup in the state of New Jersey for the Senate race. But we are looking at, we've covered all the Senate races, Florida, Indiana, and New Jersey. Right now, Menendez leading by 7% in the state of New Jersey, Donnelly by 4% in the state of Indiana, and Scott by 2% in the state of Florida. Did I say Indiana? I meant to say Indiana if I said Florida. Whatever, still, one pickup for the GOP based off the numbers here, and 2 retentions. I don't know the entire, I guess, the word for it, but the Democrats are able to hold on to 2 seats from the data we're seeing here. So that covers our Senate races. We can now move into our governor races. We have 4 polls, one from Florida, one from Alaska, one from Colorado, and one from the state of California. Now, these polls definitely show interesting results because all 4 of them were contested at one point in time. And we're looking at the Florida governor race, and right now Andrew Gillum leads by 1%. That is phenomenal for a Democratic candidate in the state of Florida with an incumbent GOP, governor who is currently approved of by a huge amount, larger than the Democratic incumbent senator. So when we're looking at the data here, right now looking at the governor's race, it really should be in favor of the GOP, but almost every poll has been consistent. Andrew Gillum wins, but by a narrow margin. In fact, he actually never lost in a poll except for one taken before the primary. So we're looking here because Gillum was not expected to win. He was polling 4th in the primary elections and then won. But right now we're looking at Andrew Gillum here, plus 2.5%, then plus 3%, plus 3.7%, plus 3.4%, at a point, 4.5. Then went to 5%, 3.7, 3.7, 3, then all of a sudden drop. He drops drastically. You look from October 17th to October 18th, a huge drop. And now he leads by 1% in every single poll taken. Gillum plus 1, Gillum plus 1, Gillum plus 1. And you look at the numbers before. This is before he campaigned with Hillary Clinton. Okay, this is after. So his numbers definitely did go down from before. So very interesting to see that. Could be other factors, but that's one of the main things that people like to point out for this race specifically. Looking at the state of Alaska right now, the governor's race is showing Dunleavy leading by 16%. When we're looking at the numbers here, overall been consistent that a GOP pickup is imminent. We're looking at the numbers. Dunleavy 44, Dunleavy 47, Dunleavy 43, Bill Walker 23, 27, 27, Begich 29, 23, 26. So there's a lot of vote splitting. Okay, if you add up the independent and the Democrat, they win the election if you throw their support to one candidate. But it's never guaranteed that all the independents will go to Mark Begich. Not guaranteed all the Democrats will either vote or go to Bill Walker. So it was something that's pretty contested. I do think Bill Walker, with his huge unpopularity rating, did think that he would lose the primary against Mark Begich, which is why he removed himself from the Democrat independent primary, giving Mark Begich the nomination. Bill Walker still ran as an independent because he was the incumbent. I don't think he wanted to lose as the incumbent governor in a primary election, of all things, in a governor election. It would make sense maybe in a House election, possibly in a Senate election, but a governor's race is something that should be very particular to the state, whereas House races could be specific to particular districts. Senate races, you go to Washington for 6 years and then you come back to campaign, whereas in Alaska, you're living in the Alaska governor's mansion. You're living in an area where you're actually legislating, not really legislating, you're enforcing. You're essentially just that singular person who helps run the entire state, whereas you're not really doing a lot for your own particular state unless you're trading votes or keeping things like Obamacare, hint, hint. But we're looking at the state of Alaska right now, and it looks like it's going to go towards the GOP by a considerable amount. That is very good for them. This vote splitting thing is something that I mentioned time and time again, and it is very real, and it's going to get very real very fast for any Democrats that think they had a possibility of carrying that race. As for the Colorado governor race, right now we're seeing Jared Polis lead by 7%. So if he does win, he will be the first openly gay governor in the United States. That is crazy. I mean, that's something that would never been possible 20 years ago. So when we're looking at data, we're seeing a lot of new type of candidates, but overall the same type of establishment, more, I guess they're just a little bit younger type Democrats that we're seeing run for these elections, and they're running into traditional Democratic states, so it's not too unexpected for them to win there. In the California governor race, this race is actually narrowed down to a +8 margin for Gavin Newsom, but you know he's probably going to win by a larger margin than that. In the Virginia 10th district race, Barbara Comstock versus Jennifer Wexton. I believe at one point I said it was Jessica, but it's Jennifer Wexton, and she has led in every single poll. Wexton +9, +6, +12, +7, +7, so it doesn't look like she's going to lose. Clinton won here by 10%. Romney won here by 1.1%. So definitely a lot more contested of a race than when it was before, but that House race has always been contested. Just now it's more in favor of the Democratic Party. So we've covered all the election polls except for the generic ballot, but we'll get to that in a moment. Now let's cover the President Trump job approval ratings. We haven't covered a lot of these polls yet, but we're actually seeing an uphill climb for the president right now if we're looking at the data. Fox News, approve 47. Economist/YouGov, approve 45. Reuters, approve 45. We're looking at this data. He was at approve 40 at some point. Okay, then 44 now. Okay, we're looking at the data, and he has gone back up from where he was before. He pretty much leveled off at 43%, never actually reaching that 45% margin, then went back down, and then all of a sudden now he's at 44.1%. These new polls definitely do favor the president, but we're going to see how it actually goes into the midterm elections and impacts the House races, the Senate races, and the governor races. So overall general conclusion is disapprove +5, +7, +9, all increasing by 2 from Fox News to Reuters, but it's still expected considering that the country never really truly approved the president before. I mean, after he did a lot of his stuff. Yes, maybe early on, but that's pretty much expected. In terms of the generic congressional vote, Democrats +1, +7, +11, +5. The overall, I guess, general would probably be +7 from Fox News. In the congressional job approval polls, nothing really interesting there. Just disapproval +49, +44, +46. Again, expected. And then the direction of the country, wrong track +17, wrong track +13. So that pretty much covers today's video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.